Well, welcome and good morning to each and every one of you. I have wanted for so long to see a moment like this where we could gather people who are in this area of need and in this area of caregiving, could come together and get information and connect as a network of support to help one another in this one very, very difficult area of our lives. So I'm really glad to see each and every one of you here today for this mental health we're calling this symposium. We are sponsoring this. The Care Ministries of the Church is sponsoring this with FERC. You'll hear more about FERC later. For those of you who don't know, my name is Mark Stryker. I'm one of the pastors here on staff, and I work with the Care Ministries Department of First Presbyterian Church here in Berkeley. And one of the things that we seek to do in the Care Ministries Department is support caregivers. Oftentimes we think simply about those who need care, which is true, but what about those who give care and that complicated area of providing support for people in need? And this one area where people struggle with mental health and mental illness can be one of the most demanding moments of caregiving that a person has to give, and we want to be able to provide support for that today. Personally, being involved in caring for such a loved one, many of us have learned how isolating that this can feel and how helpless you can become in this complicated and demanding moment where we're caring for those who we love, who struggle with mental illness and mental health. And so I'm glad that FERC is here today. They're going to provide us with some key information, networks, inspiration, and guidance into directing us and giving of care. Just a couple of notes for housekeeping for those of you who don't know. There are restrooms in the back of the sanctuary. To the right is the men's room. Over here to the left is the women's room. And the other building over here, Westminster, to my left, which is where we will have the breakout rooms. There are bathrooms over there. In terms of masks, some of you are wearing them. We're asking you. It's not mandated, of course, but we're asking people. We're highly recommending that you use a mask and be responsible for that. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Is there anything else? David, is there anything else? Or Genevieve, is there anything else? The tables out there is information. I'm sure that you folks are going to give directions about what that information is, how to use it, and what to take. There's some coffee out there and snacks. Feel free to get up and move around if you need to in the middle of the presentations. Just, obviously don't be disturbing or anything like that. But, if you feel free, you need to stand up, you need to stretch or whatever like that, feel free to do so. So I'm going to offer up a prayer for our morning together. If you are not a part of a faith tradition, I invite you simply to this space to just be quiet. But here we call upon the presence of God to be with us, and I'm using a prayer that comes from NAMI's website. Loving and merciful God, we gather knowing you are a God of love and compassion. We are a people of many backgrounds here today seeking wisdom, comfort, and guidance. We come trusting your divine presence, a presence that is with us now and each day of our lives. Give us courage to face our challenges and open us today to the many ways you are already working in our midst. Help us to identify and see mental illness as the disease it is, that we might have courage and wisdom in the face of ignorance and stigma. Inspire us as we seek to overcome fear, acquire knowledge, and advocate for compassionate and enlightened treatment and services. Sometimes, O God, we feel discouraged and hopeless in the face of so many challenges. Help us to see ourselves as you see us, persons of value and worth, persons of creativity and potential. And may we come to understand the interconnectedness of mind, body, and spirit in bringing about health and wholeness. Bless this moment and the space between us. Amen. So I want to introduce to you Genevieve Wilson. Genevieve has put us in connection with the great folks at FERC. She herself has been involved in our communities in the area of mental health with doing classes on training in mental health first aid. And she is a member of the Way Church on University here in Berkeley, and she's going to come and introduce our speakers for today. Genevieve?
Is this microphone? Is this microphone on? Yes, it is. Okay, awesome. I'm Genevieve, and welcome. We have so been looking forward to having this event, and it's actually the kind of event that we had thought about having in May 2020 until we shut down. So this is our first attempt at a reboot, and we're really glad that you're here. We're hoping that this will be a time that can be warm and connecting, as well as educational and supportive in the way of offering resources. So, welcome. I want to start with a little bit of an icebreaker. Do you have the slide, David? Perfect. What brought you here today? So just hold that question for a moment. I'm going to talk about this slide. These are my mother's flowers in her garden. They're forget-me-nots. And I love looking at pictures of her flowers. She lives in Washington State, so I don't get to see her that often. But when I look at these in particular, they remind me of my mother's love for me and how she doesn't ever forget me. Like, I'm always present with my mom. And as I was thinking about this morning, and I was on the bus watching people getting ready for graduation, people were coming on in their robes with their coffees, and there was this energy about it, and I thought, what a great morning for new beginnings, for departures from what was into something that's coming, what's new, right? And I thought about my mother and how supportive she has always been of me, and how her love and that support and that warmth has really carried me through facing mental health challenges, sometimes my own, sometimes people that I'm walking with. And I thought, my gosh, I really hope that everyone who's in the room this morning has at least one or two people like that in their own lives. And I hope that if they don't, that this morning would be a new beginning for that, whether it come through people in the room today or through others that come into your lives as a result of opening this new chapter. So on that note, I want to do a little exercise, and I know that we're distanced and that some of us know each other and some of us probably don't. I'll share first, but what I'd like to do after I share is for people to get in pairs. If you came in a pair, pick someone that you didn't come with, and just share what brought you here today, briefly. You don't have to share much. It could be anything, right? It could be general, it could be specific. I'm going to give about 5 minutes for that. What brought me here today, my gosh, was thinking about all the different ways that my life has intersected with folks facing mental health challenges and wanting the kind of support that I have in my life to be available to other people, for them to know about it and be able to access it. So that's really what brought me here today. So would you take a few minutes and find yourself a pair and distance as you feel comfortable? And I'll let you know when there's a minute left, but just share at least your first name and one thing that brought you here today. Okay. And let's bring that to a close. Now, I want you to do the same thing again, but I'm going to put you in slightly larger groups. So let's see, why don't we do, Mark's moving over there. Why don't we do like these 4 people? Okay. And these 4 people? And these back 4 people? And can I pull you guys over this direction? So go ahead and group up in about 4s. You guys are together. Let's see. Maybe we can, what can we do? Why don't you guys come over here, and 2 of you go up there. Swap that up. Yeah, you guys go over here, and 2 of them are going to come with these guys. We'll break the FERC staff. So yeah, you're going to answer the same question again. With a slightly larger group of people, and I want you to be thinking as you're listening to what people are sharing, what are the common threads? Where do we have common ground? What do we hold in common? So just go ahead and share with your group again. Yeah, everybody's come for their own reasons. That's unique. But as you're sharing with one another, what kinds of things are held in common? What do you hold together? Yeah. Okay, last minute. Just collect your thoughts and think about what are the common threads? Because we're going to share those a little bit. I'm going to ask people to share what kind of commonalities there were. You guys ready? Ready to share? Okay. Who would like to share some things first? Which group would like to share a few things first? You have to share specifics or be vulnerable, but like what were some of the common things that came out in your conversations? Getting tools to deal with things going on in family. Okay? Other things that were in common? Feeling isolated? Feelings of, okay, isolation. Yeah, great. What else? How to be an advocate. That's wonderful. Support each other in that. Fantastic. What else? Fantastic. Okay, so he said the feelings of helplessness that come with watching someone suffer with mental health challenges. And could you repeat the second part? Right, feeling the sense of God's help for themselves and the other person involved. What else? Anything else? Yeah, she was in that group. Wonderful. Okay. So she's talking about the nature of it being a personal connection, not just an abstract idea or like a philosophy or something out there. It's something that's close, and that there's a lot of nuance to it. It's not cut and dry. That there's a lot of gray. Is that okay? Anything else? Welcome in for those who are coming. Yeah. Yes. We're glad you made it. Welcome. Welcome. If there's refreshment, if that would help. Restrooms, refreshment. Yes. Be at rest. Welcome in. Anything else before we move on? Those are really wonderful reflections. So there's a lot of commonality, right? We may have everyone's got their own story, everyone's coming in for their own reason, with their own convictions, with their own feelings, but like there's nothing new under the sun, really, right? So, yeah, on that note, I want to introduce to you FERC. Because there were definitely quite a lot of notes of like feeling like there's a need for support and there's a desire for more support. Well, FERC is an organization that I got to know. I'll bring you up in a second, or you can come up and sit while I talk. That's fine too. Yeah, they're an organization that I got to know actually through a Rotary meal here at this church, and I didn't know anything about them. A friend of mine was in Rotary and said, you got to come to this, you got to hear about these guys, and I was like, okay, so I showed up, and their executive director was speaking, and I was like sitting at this table, and I looked at him, and I was like, are these people real? Like, I had no idea this existed. And they were in the process of redoing their website and all this stuff. And I just thought, how on earth? I'd been working with folks with mental health challenges and I had been doing a lot of volunteer street outreach for a long time. And I just thought, how on earth have I been an advocate in this region for 10 years and I never heard of these guys? So I sort of held that in my mind. I met her and I talked to her and I went home and I thought about some things and then continued to feel different mental health challenges with loved ones, some of whom were my own housemates, some of whom were people I met in the streets. We've got some stuff that's going on in my own family, right? And at some point, just hit this total impasse in this situation that I just thought, I cannot see my way through this for the life of me. A woman that I had known who was on the streets at the time committed a violent crime, and she ended up incarcerated. And because I knew her, I knew that it was mental health related, and I had no idea how to navigate through it. And her church was even more so. Like, they really didn't know what to do. And so the church checked out, and I had enough knowledge and connection that I stayed in. And I thought, I have to call FERC. Because they exist. They're a program of the Mental Health Association of Alameda County. And they exist to educate, to advocate for, and to support, often by way of encouraging self-care, those of us who are helping to walk with others who are facing challenges. So they have a free warm line, which I called immediately. And someone called me back. And I think of them, I don't know if they think, they'll tell you more in detail, but I think of them as a front door, Mark's put it this way, as a front door to mental health services in our region through the county, where I feel overwhelmed because I don't know what's available, I don't know what I can do, I don't know what I can't do, I don't know what's available, and if I call them, they will help me sort that out. Whether it's educational, advocacy, services, I can rely on them to help me figure out, okay, what can be done, if anything? Where can we go from here? So in this situation, I called, and I was assigned a mental health advocate, and as a result of that, of FERC walking with me, with this woman, and sorting things bit by bit, because it took quite a lot of time, her church eventually was able to buy back in also and reunite with her, because it had been a very, very scary situation. And that is still very much in process, but I felt held in it for my faith, not only by God, but by people that I feel He provided to help navigate. So on that note, I want to invite them up to tell you more in detail what they're about and what they have to offer. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. We are just madness for people trying to work with us with the mics and things because we're all over the place, and we thought we'd make it less formal by sitting here, but actually I like to stand, so we'll just use the mics and we'll be all over the place. Thank you so much for those kind words, and thank you so much for inviting us to be here today. It's an honor for us to be able to talk to you, to be able to share with you our information, our knowledge, and to share with you about our program. My name is Betty Foster. I'm the program supervisor, and we have Lisa, who's one of our family advocates. Michelle is our lead family advocate. Our other staff today, we have Kadir, family advocate, David is a family advocate, and Mary is our outreach coordinator. So we're all here today to share information with you and to tell you a little bit about our agency, what we do, and then also to be able to do some breakout sessions and talk about things that are more pertinent to you, okay? If you have questions for us, write them down so that later we'll be able to address them for you. So I'm going to go through some slides. Tell you first of all a little bit about who we are, how we came about. We are a program of the Mental Health Association of Alameda County. We are the Family Education and Resource Center. And we are fully funded by MHSA dollars. It's that 1% tax on millionaires. The funding goes into a pot that is distributed to the state and then distributed to the counties. And that's how we receive funding for our program. All of our services are free to the family members. We do workshops, we do presentations. We've worked with many groups throughout the state, actually. We have resources to share. We have libraries of information, and it's all free. So everything that we do is free because of the MHSA funding. That was also Proposition 63 that was voted on in 2004. So thank you, everyone who voted for Prop 63. Michelle loves that part. Okay, we opened our doors for the first time in September of 2009. So we started off as a pilot program, and fortunately, we are still here today. So thank you so much for everything you've done. Next slide. So we have several offices. We have our main office is in Oakland at 7677 Oakport Street. We just moved there. We're not really open yet because we're still unpacking. It's taken a while, but we will be open for service very soon, and we'll have an open house. And we have two offices in Fremont at the Fremont Family Resource Center, where Michelle is an advocate there. And we have one office in Livermore, where Lisa is the advocate at that office, as well as they have clients in those areas, but also clients in Oakland, Berkeley, all over the county. But that's just where they have a separate office. In all of our offices, we have a lending library. So clients can come in, they can pick up information, they can sit and meet with an advocate, or they can check out a book. We have lots of books. The other thing is that if someone, there's a book that they've been thinking about that they really want to get, but it costs too much, we will purchase the book, and then you can check it out from us. So we're just here to serve the community in any way that we can. We also have computers that sometimes family members need to fill out forms or type up some information where they just want to have some time to themselves. You can come in and do that. You can use the courtesy telephone. Whatever we can do to make it comfortable for family members, that's what we do. And next slide. So we have been working remotely since March of 2020. When the pandemic first hit. So yes, that's how it looked for some of us, probably many of us, with the cat on our back and the dog on our side. But we were so happy that we could still meet with families, that we started having virtual support groups. We started having workshops virtually, using Zoom and Teams and whatever we could to still be able to reach out to families. Our warm line is still active, so people could call and we just have conversations. But fortunately, we're back in the office. So now, I mean, this is like, for me, our first event of getting out and staff has just been really tired of me because I've been so excited to come out, to share with people, to talk with people. We have so much literature outside on our tables that please pick it up, and we'd like you to be able to take it with you. Okay, so that you can look over it later, so that some of your questions will be answered. We have folders that you can put the papers in as well, so you don't have to just carry loose paper around. And we have some other giveaway items and things that we really want you to take advantage of. So we're happy to be here. We're happy to be able to do our workshops once again in person. We'll tell you a little bit more about the types of workshops that we do later, but one is Family to Family, which is a class that is sponsored through NAMI. It's an 8-week course for family members and caregivers, but the nice thing about it, we can now do it in person. We're going to do a hybrid class where, you know, someone can be online and also they can be in person. Okay, next slide.
Right, making sure this is on. So FERC Family Advocates, you've heard a lot of us talking about we are advocates, where we're located, but who are we? So FERC is kind of a unique program in that everybody that works for FERC, we have 14 staff members, all of us have had or still continue to have a loved one going through a mental health concern, and it makes it so that it's a little more personal in the aspect of we've been there, right? You hear that slogan, we've had it on quite a few things, you'll see it more throughout the day, but we've been there. So it makes it so that we can help. Our goal is that other people don't have to go through what we've been through. And if it's something we haven't been through, we'll work through it with you. You know, that's the opportunity for us to move forward and help support each other and open the community, open the resources, as we talked about out there, open the lending library, things like that, so that everybody has this education, but also this support wrapped around them. So we have been and currently care for somebody close to us. Next slide. Sorry. So what does that mean, that we care for somebody close to us? So when we talk about family member or caregiver, we're not talking about somebody who's a parent. We're not just talking about somebody who has a sibling or a spouse, but we're also talking about that neighbor next door. We're also talking about teachers calling us about children who may need some extra support and their families needing that extra support for diagnosis that may have just come up. We have resources to reach out for some of our elderly family members. We have resources to help get them support. We have crisis lines. And so when we talk about family members and caregivers, we're talking about anybody. And, you know, to give a little backstory with that, because I think it's important, I received a call. I'd been there maybe 6 months, and I received a call from a gentleman who said, across the street, there's always this lady who parks, and she sleeps in her car. And I'm concerned because normally she's sleeping in her car, and about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, she leaves, and she puts herself together, she gets dressed, and she's gone. And she comes back around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I'm concerned because she hasn't left. The car's still there. And I know she's in the car, I can see her, she's moving, so I'm not that concerned about health aspect, but I'm concerned because this isn't normal. This isn't typical. So this person's reaching out to somebody they don't know, but they have that concern. So when we're talking about neighbors and family and friends, it could be anybody that you have that thought or concern about. That's what we're here to help give those resources and that support and help walk you through that. All right, FERC programs. So what do we do? Other than you've heard us say resources and support. Well, let's think about that. We are here to walk you through these things. It's not us going, here, have a phone number, call them, this is a list. we don't have a time limit. If we work with you for a week, I have clients I've had since I started. We're here to walk through these things with you. We have our warm line. If you don't have an advocate, we have a warm line you can call. It's 10 to 6, and they'll hook you up with an advocate. You'll have somebody call you back, generally within 24 hours, if not sooner. That's that warm connection, right? It's somebody answering that line. It's not just a voicemail in most cases, hopefully. And it's just to hear that sometimes we need, right, that person to just answer that phone. And so that's what our goal is with our support line. We talked about the education. If somebody has a new diagnosis, if somebody doesn't have a diagnosis, but they're concerned of things that are going on with their family member, it's walking through that. How can we get a diagnosis? Or how can we just get the support, even if there isn't one? How can we work with our families to move forward, right? Instead of being stagnant. I heard somebody when we were in our little groups talk about isolation. How do we get out of that isolation? What are some steps, right? We also have support groups. We have many support groups. FERC alone runs support groups, but we also have a list of support groups for all of Alameda County. Again, that's that connection with the community. It doesn't have to be us. It can be somebody else, and that's where we want that support aspect of it. We can help with IEPs in the school. So if you have a child who's in high school, elementary school, kindergarten, middle school, college, we can help support you, support them, and come up with those programs and things that are available. The other thing is, and it's up there in the little corner in the green, it's hope. I will say from my perspective, going through this with family members, sometimes it's difficult to have hope when everything else is going on. And one of the things when I came into this position that was said, and I will hold it, is that sometimes we have to hold the hope that maybe you don't have right now. And our goal is to help you gain that hope back and to move forward with that and what that looks like.
So good morning. Okay. Welcome to May Mental Health Month. That's what May's about, Mental Health Month, and going out, educating, and trying to reach out to our community for the support that is needed. So we're going to talk about today not only about mental health, but also about us, family members, family caregivers, and how we can move forward in helping not only ourselves, but our loved ones as well. But before we start, I know I always do stuff on the side here, I would like everyone to touch their head. Go ahead, touch your head. Come on, touch your head. Now touch your neck. Yeah, okay, touch your arm or your leg or whatever. Now, my question is, I want you to hold into your mind, is your head connected to your body? Let's think about that. Because we always seem to separate our brain from our body. But it all works together, correct? So that's what I want you to hold through the rest of this time that you're here, that your head, which has your brain in it, is working with the rest of your body. Okay? All right then. I would like you to also know, or did you know, that mental illness is a medical condition? Really? Wow. Okay. And mental illness is a disorder of the brain, okay, that affects your moods, your thoughts, and your behaviors. However, it can disrupt a person's ability to have a relationship, doing day-to-day activity, engaging in a relationship, or even work day to day. I want you to remember that as well. disruption of your day-to-day activity. It's nothing to be ashamed about because, again, and I keep saying this, it's a medical condition. Medical condition. Just like if we had a heart disease or diabetes. Guess what? It's all connected. So we're going to look at some of the common diagnoses of mental illness here, some of them. We're going to look at, let's talk about major depression. So let's think about it. Today, I might go home, cozy up with a little nice comfortable blanket, and just cuddle up in my bed. However, major depression goes a little further. It says, I've been in this bed for over 2 weeks here. I'm sad. I don't care about my hygienes. My body is aching. I just can't move. It's not just about the blues. It's a little more than that. Let's talk about schizophrenia. A thought processing disorder. It's difficult to distinguish what is real and what is not real. So at this time, I could be sitting here and looking at people and saying, okay, that rug is moving. The rug is moving closer to me. No one else sees that, but I don't know that. I can tell you that. And you're looking at me saying, no, it's not. But that's what's going on in my mind. That's what's happening to me. So just think about those things. Let's talk and move further on. And let's see, I see bipolar disorder. Ooh, those are those mood swings. So 1 minute, we just talked about depression, correct? Where I'm sitting up there and I could be sad, feeling hopeless. And then there's what we call manic. I'm going to sit up here. Someone give me a broom or something like that. I'm going to clean these rugs off. Who wants to go shopping with me? I have a credit card. Woo, we're going to go spend some money. So we go from one thing to another. One thing to another. And we all sit there and go, oh my goodness. That person is just excited and happy and everything. And you're like, oh, this is great. And then later on, that person you could see, I just don't want to be bothered. I'm in my bedroom. I just don't need to be bothered. There's several other disorders like anxiety. So I think I was a little worried about coming and talking today. However, some anxieties here, I'm not going to just worry about today. I'm going to worry about tomorrow. I'm going to worry about the next day. Extreme, extensive worrying. And that's where your anxiety can come through, is it's so persistent. And I'm fearful every day. And then we have post-traumatic stress disorder. These are events that people experience, traumatic events, horrifying. It could be hopelessness and fear, intense, things that happen, these events that happen. It could be an earthquake that happened, abuse, our veterans coming back, any of those things. But guess what? You're sitting up there and saying, okay, it will blow over in a day. You might not even see this in a week, in a month. It could take maybe a year, and that comes out. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, or a disease of doubt. So let's think about it. Today, I got in my car, I started driving. Did I put that garage down? Let me go back. Okay, it's down. I start driving again, get further away. Did I really put that garage down? Let me go back. Okay, it is down. I see it's down. Everything's good. Drive away. I can do it again. This is affecting my daily life because now, guess what? I'm probably not going to make it here on time. Or it's something where I might be washing my hands over and over. It's a repeat and repeating and repeating. Or I'm sitting up here and for OCD, this book is just not the right spot here. Oh no, let me go fix it again. Just certain things that can affect our daily lives. And with that, you think about, if I don't get any support or help or treatment, this could get worse. This could get worse. And as family members, we're watching, we're seeing, we're viewing this, and we're saying, okay, what am I going to do here if that person is not getting treated? How can we help? And then sometimes we lose that hope that, okay, forget it. I can't do anything. This person's not going to get better. Excuse me. Recovery is possible. But think about it. We're not only looking at our loved ones for recovery. Guess what? We're going through it too. So we need to recover as well. And we have a recovery process just as much as they do. You can switch it over. So let's talk about how common really is mental illness. Really, come on. So we have numbers up there. And since these numbers have been put up here, I think that we say about 26, you're going to go 2019? Okay, 2018. We'll go to 2018. I'm going to give you some updated numbers here. And just let's view it. So we have 1 in 4. It is now 1 in 5 adults experience a mental health disorder in a given year. The other part, what about 1 in 17? No, we're now 1 in 20. Persons live with a serious mental illness. We have children, that would be 1 in 6. Youth age around 6 to 17 years of age experience a mental health disorder. Our children during the pandemic, as we all know and as we all talked about, have gone through a lot. And we're now seeing more PTSD. We're seeing a lot more suicides as well. I think it's about 1 in 10 children in the U.S. live with mental illness because of, that's rising, and they're losing their social skills. Their learning is becoming difficult. They're not doing as well in school anymore. We might have more dropouts. And we talked about homelessness. I think you brought that up earlier. That number, 26%, I can't even find the right number because it's all over the map. And when I say that, it's going higher. But I couldn't get an exact number now. And we have so many of our loved ones going into prison. Not only adults, but children as well. And sadly to say, we did talk about suicide. That says every 15 minutes, 15.8 minutes. It is now down to every 11 minutes. Every 11 minutes. And this could be part of doing, such as depression, could be part of it. So I like this little thing. It's not moving right now, but you can see it in your mind, visualize how this is moving along. When we're going to go talk about when a mental illness strikes a family, it's like, I bet you could feel like a rushing wave coming over you and sweeping you, and you're just grabbing and grabbing to survive. And it's sweeping away to a point that our loved ones' abilities are also coming underneath that wave too. And are not only for family members and loved ones, and for our family members, let's think about it. Society wants us to have a normal life. What is normal? I don't know what normal is, okay? Your life is different from my life, so what you do might not be as normal as what I think it's gonna be. So we're putting that, though, on each other. Everyone's an individual. So, I do have something here that I'm going to, not me read, but I would like you to listen.
When things were at their worst, it seemed like the illness was in control and that our entire family was being pulled under. We were all overwhelmed and helpless. We felt stranded and alone. On the shore, as it seemed our son was being swept away by schizophrenia, out of the reach and forever lost to us as the person we had known. We felt helpless to help him and knew no one to explain what was happening.
We know today, we still know people, and that's why you're here, that have little information or none at all for our loved ones as well as in our community, what resources are available. And that's why I am very happy that this program has come about. We are here to support you, our family members. And I would like you to keep in your heart, once you walk out of this room or any time of another day, that you are not by yourself. You are not alone. We are here. And there are other people here too. This church has opened up their doors for a reason. That means that there's someone here that you can talk to. Remember that. So let's talk about the faces. Yeah. Let's talk about the faces. Do you know that whoever you're sitting by or near or close to or in your congregation or in the grocery store, your doctor, your lawyer, your teacher, do they have a mental health situation going on? Are they taking medication? Do you know that? Not always. There are prominent people that are walking around that have mental illness. There is no face. They're human beings. We have to remember that. We don't really truly know who around us could possibly might be going through something, because sometimes we put on that face. And as a family member, I don't know really what you're going through unless you say something to me or unless I knew you ahead of time and I can see that something's changing within you. And hopefully someone here who does see that will reach out and say, hey, not how are you and keep going, but say, hey, how are you? And take that time to listen. It's really important that we listen to each other. We need to kind of respect each other. We need to also respect our community. We need to respect others' cultures and other people's journeys, because they're all going to be unique. Just because I feel that something might work for you, that's not always true, because everyone is different. Everyone has a different need. So these faces that you see that are so beautiful that are up there, we don't know which one of those people, or if any, are going through any type of situation when it comes to mental health. All as we want to make sure is that you remember there is a recovery, and that person can recover, whether it's in their way or not, and that's what we have to remember, what their recovery would be. Betty, can we talk about spiritual isolation since we see these faces up there?
Yes. You know, when we think about spiritual isolation, we think about how isolated we may feel being in a congregation, and we don't want anyone to know what's going on with us. We're estranged from that group that we always felt so close to. You know, we don't talk about, even often in congregations, that something's going on in my household with my loved one, because just like we don't want our neighbors to know, we don't want our fellow congregants to know what we're going through. And then we're often told that, you know, as Christians, we turn to God. We turn to God when we need help. But the church hasn't always been open to that secular method of reaching out to psychiatrists. You're so fortunate here at this church to have the caring ministry, to have someone to talk to who is relatable, someone that you can reach out to and say, there's something else happening in my family. I need your help. I need someone to talk to. I need someone to relate to. And I need someone to pray with me. Spiritual isolation is real. And as a family member, as a caregiver, holding all that in, you yourself can start to experience depression. We're going to talk a little later about some of the things that happen to us as family members because we hold it all in. So I really want to encourage you that you're not alone. Know that you're not alone. Even in your congregation, reach out to someone and let them know that, hey, I need to talk to somebody because there's some stuff happening in my household that I don't understand. There's some stuff happening with my loved one that I don't know what to do. And I need to talk to a psychiatrist, or I need to talk to someone who knows more about this. Okay, next slide. So, responding to illness. This is something we talked about in our group this morning. I like to say when Aunt Mary has cancer or diagnosed with diabetes, you visit her in the hospital. Oh my goodness, she's not doing well. You send note cards. When she goes home, you send note cards. Get well soon, we're thinking about you. You prepare meals, not only for Aunt Mary, but you prepare meals for the family because you want them to be able to eat. And then the church comes together and we all pray for that person that they're doing better. We call her and we have prayer with her. There's so much support available for her. And then when she comes back, we all applaud and say, welcome back. We're glad you're feeling better. But when that same person is diagnosed with mental illness, when Aunt Mary goes into a mental health hospital because she's been diagnosed with schizophrenia, there's no visits. No one wants to go there. No one sends a note card and say, just thinking about you, hope you feel better soon. No one prepares meals for her or for her family. We stay away. We shy away. We know that it's not contagious, but we're not sure what's going to happen if we go there. Are we praying for her at that point? How much support are we really giving her and or her family? And when she comes back to church, no one says anything. You know, we all want to respect the privacy of someone when if it's a mental health challenge, if it's a medical condition. But let's not forget, we still need to reach out because as Michelle said, this is still a medical illness. So whether the person is struggling with diabetes, cancer, or mental illness, we as family members, we as congregants, we as neighbors, we still need to think about that person and reach out. because that person is us. And we know how we felt when our loved one went into the hospital. You know, we know what we needed. We want to be able to give the same thing to someone else. Next slide.
Okay, is our head still attached to our body? Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay. So let's talk about the family needs and some of the common emotional reactions once we find out that about our loved ones having a mental illness. You notice I said having? I know I'm going on my soapbox here. Okay. I want you to kind of think about when we talk to our loved ones or each other, we sometimes sit up there and say, oh, my loved one is bipolar. I'm like, what? Okay. What do you mean they're bipolar? They have bipolar. The illness, it's an illness, okay? It's not them. I would like you to remember this in the future, because if I see any of you outside and you say that, I'm going to catch you and say something, okay? Because we have to think about this. When you turn around, do you say to someone, oh, Susie is cancerous? It's like, whoa, what does that mean? She has cancer, don't we say that? So let's think about it. It's an illness, a medical condition, again. So, bringing back, let's talk about us as family members, caregivers. We're going to actually take a little journey with me and what my reaction was when I heard about my loved one being diagnosed. I'm kind of a rare person, I think, unique again, because usually it will be a denial situation. I'm going to be in denial that my loved one has mental illness. No way, that can't happen in our family. Nope, sorry, not going to talk about it. We're not going to do this. Watching my sibling for years, and then finding out that there was a medical condition. Oh, yay! I was not happy, but I was, wow, there's something that can work now. We can get help for that person. They can get treatment, medication, and poof, everything's going to be so much better. So I wasn't in denial because I thought, with not the education, that there would be treatment and everything that would poof it away. And think about it. As family members, we're hoping that as well, that there's something that can poof it away, or this was something that happened and something happened stressful outside, or something went on and things will get better because of that. Not having the knowledge that I have now, of course, it wasn't, like I said, a shock or anything like that. The shock came to me is knowing that how I can find out some information to get some help. Who can I reach out to? Who can help me? Who can help my loved one? And also, too, with my family, my older brother and I, because I said we were relieved, is because my sister, as far as I was concerned, was just being a spoiled brat. Don't forget I'm a sibling. I can say that. As a sibling, that's how I felt. But there was something actually going on. And as I sat up here and talked, and I actually called Lisa last night, and I said, you know what? Something dawned on me. A reason why I feel that I wasn't in denial is and this took all this time for me to figure this out. I had family members, several of my family members, that actually worked in a psychiatric facility. One of the largest psychiatric facilities in the country, Pilgrim State on Long Island, one of the largest. So maybe, now that I think about it, that helped me through this, not to be so shocked, not to be ashamed, because that happens too. We're ashamed of what's going on here. So I think that helped me in understanding that maybe that wasn't a denial thing, because I've seen them at their work. But guess what? They're no longer alive for me to turn around and ask them questions to get help. So did I feel like I was going, so we have a stage 1 and a stage 2 here. We're going to have a stage 3 and a stage 4. We're going to show you all these stages. So we did talk about the denial part, which I didn't have. And there can be times, because we are hearing this, that we're overwhelmed because we don't know what to do. We're still stunned about hearing that news. What can we do to help out? Okay, I did feel alone, like I just said, because who do we reach out to? My family members that used to work in those facilities are no longer around. What did they do? How did they do things? How can I get information? That was hard for me. It was hard for my family. There was no FERC at this time. Plus, I wasn't even living here some parts of the time that FERC, when FERC finally came around, that's when I came out here. But I didn't know about no FERC, because there was no FERC at that time. Thank goodness that changed. NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, was around, but I didn't know about a NAMI. So guess where I learned? Guess where I learned about bipolar disorder? I bet you can't guess. I was watching TV. This is not a lie. I was watching TV. Have we all heard about General Hospital? Does anybody watch General Hospital, the soap opera? No. And Sonny Corinthos, who is a, what is he? I don't know, a mafia guy. I guess is a mafia guy or whatever like that. He was diagnosed, the television show, and he really does have he does have mental health condition. He does in real life. But he was diagnosed on TV show that he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I'm like, all right, let's find out. And then we're talking about the medication and what happens and what it does. I learned that from TV because I wasn't getting all the information that I needed from the doctors. So, oh my goodness. So I kind of give them a clap. And they still talk to today, because I watched it the other day, and they still talk about mental illness. And actually the actor, who in real life does have a mental health condition, did come on TV and did talk about it at the end, if you have mental health, and gave the information. I was so proud of that. So from way back when to now, of course, we see things on TV. We see and hear. But at that time, for my stage 2 part here, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt ashamed when people looked at my sibling and because of the medication and everything, thought she was a drug addict. That upset me. I felt guilty at times because I didn't know in advance, because I just thought she was being a spoiled brat. So I felt bad about that of all these years, her and I getting into these rumbling arguments and fight, but it wasn't because of herself. Not all of it, some was. She still was some spoiled, but it was also because of the mental illness. Anger. I was angry because I couldn't get the necessary support that was needed. So I did start questioning myself on how I could support, help, and do for her, as well as do for my family, because there were people in my family, in denial. There was. Even though we had family members that worked at the psychiatric facility, we had people that was in denial still. And on different things about here, I think it does say here, let me see, that acknowledge the differences and similarities within a family's emotional stage. So families can be in different stages, and you'll see the next two. But we have to accept that and try to work with our family members on which stage that they can do. Because sometimes they might be in denial or they might be angry, but they might be able to help and support me by saying, but I'll take that person to the store. I'm like, okay. So you have to give into that family member. If they're willing to help, let them help. If they say that they're in, if you know that they're denial or shame or mad or anything, but they're still willing to help, let them help. There's a reason why they're helping. Maybe in the way back in their mind, they do know. So those are the things. I need you to remember one thing. I, for myself, didn't cause this. I know I can't cure it, and I also know I can't control it. But what I do know is that I can give the utmost respect and show the utmost love for my loved one. I would like Lisa to go to stage 3 and 2, and she'll talk about what she went through.
Absolutely. And thank you, Michelle. Talking about stage 2, and you're talking about that shame and that grief. When you move into stage 3, it's, you're beginning to regain, as it says, regain that sense of competence. You're moving into a situation where we know there's a diagnosis or a mental health concern. We've gotten past some of the initial shock, right? And we've moved past some of that anger and frustration with what happened in the shame. But now we're moving into that frustration and anger of why is nothing getting done? Why, the help isn't there? Why do we have to push so hard? Why is there so much stigma when you've heard us all talk about this is a medical condition? If this is a medical condition, why is that stigma there, right? And being frustrated with that, and how much it hurts not only our loved one who's going through that, but also us. We've talked a little bit about keeping that to ourselves and not sharing it with other people because of that shame. And now it's becoming painful and hurtful for us. I share, Michelle went through stages 1 and 2, but I will share, for me, not getting a diagnosis or not getting that support for my daughter was extremely difficult. It turned my family upside down. And so when I moved into stage 3, from a marriage with 3 kids to a single mom of 1 child with a mental health condition. It was extremely difficult. So for me to get into stage 3, I had to go through all of the rest of that. And then that anger focused on what if? What if there was this support? What if they would have made these diagnoses? What if, that's the question we ask. Kind of when Michelle talks about the FERC and not having a FERC, I didn't have a FERC either. I was in Sonoma County. When I moved down here, I live in Contra Costa, and I'm part of this with Alameda. We don't have a FERC in Contra Costa. I will say we do help support the best we can up there as FERC, but we don't have a FERC. And so just that inability to get past the what if, I was angry. People joke about the Karen, right? Somebody going to these doctors and I don't understand why you didn't do this, and why don't you do this? And trying to understand the frustration behind it. But what came out of that is me learning how to educate myself about the situation, learning about the diagnosis, trying to understand and learning what happened, why this happened. You know, taking that time to, like Michelle said, that it wasn't something I did, that it wasn't something that I could control because it is a medical condition. And so I took that, as we call it, stage 3, and I wrapped that into stage 4 of that frustration and that anger, and turned that into the ability to become an advocate, not only for my own family. I still am a very strong advocate for my son, but to then become an advocate for other people. I come with the experience that before FERC, I worked in a residential facility. So I worked with loved ones going through these challenges. And so having that knowledge of what they're firsthand going through, what in those facilities is being given to them. And in some facilities, it's amazing, and in others, not so much. And wanting that advocacy for them, but then also stepping back, and when this opportunity came up to work with families, it's that advocacy of nobody else has to go through the things that I've gone through. And even if I haven't, I've learned enough education to be able to walk with them, to help support that person. Because in every single one of us, we are a strong advocate. Sometimes it just takes somebody walking with you to realize how much of an advocate you are for yourself and for your loved ones. And so, you know, that stage 4, whereas it's great and we become these advocates, it's also a reminder for us, we can go back in stages. I can still be a very strong advocate, but I live at home with my loved one. And some days, even though I know I didn't cause these things, it's, did I do enough? I go back to stage 2 and that shame and guilt of, did I catch things fast enough? Did I push enough? Was I going through so much that I didn't give him 100% of what he needed? So that puts me back in stage 2. I'm still advocating. I'm still here. I'm still at work, and I'm still there to support other people, but I still have those feelings of stage 2. And so it's a reminder that this isn't okay, I'm in stage 1, and then I'm in stage 2, and then I move to 3, then I move to 4. This is a circle. Sometimes we'll stay in 4, sometimes we'll stay in 3. There's sometimes I have a mom in stage 1 and a dad in stage 3. Or a teacher who's all for it in stage 4 in that advocacy, and trying to ask and reach out for that support for the family who may be in stage 1. And so this is a circle. You know, we don't always just land in advocacy or in stage 3 with our, what's appropriate and moving forward with that education. It's an ongoing circle. And you'll probably hear this multiple times today, but presenting here, talking with the family members I work with, going to support groups, I learn something new every single time that I have a conversation with somebody. So I am always learning. And I think that's the goal for all of us, is we're always learning something new.
Betty, before you start, there's one thing I would like, I always have to go back and say something sometimes. On stage 2, one of the things I think I did not go over, which I would think is very important, is there's a grieving process. We, at times, feel we lost someone. That person that we had so many things and hope for, we have to now take a step back and try to refigure if we can get some of those things back. But in our hearts, sometimes we feel that that person is gone. I like to talk to my family members, and I like to think for myself too. Yes, maybe what that person had in mind, or how fast they wanted to do something, won't be able to do this. But I really didn't lose. That person is still there. Your loved one is still there. And now we just have to take different steps. And let's think about it. Things change. When the child is 2 years old, oh my goodness, when they were babies, now they're in their terrible twos you talk about, then they turn 16. Did we change through these time periods? They turned 16. Now they're 18. Another change. So they're changing. They're evolving. And I like to think about those are the steps that we take with our loved ones as well. Because they're changing, they're learning, we're evolving. So I try, not to think about it as a loss when it comes to my family members. We just we're on a different path and a different journey. I do grieve because my sister is not here anymore. So I do grieve. So that's when I grieve, is because she is not here. If your family member is here, that's wonderful, because there's hope and recovery, and grab on to that. Betty?
Thank you so much. I really love that. There's hope and there's recovery. Recovery looks different for all of our loved ones. It looks different for everyone. But it's so important because, as Michelle says, you could be sitting next to someone right now that the only reason they seem to be okay to you right now is because they took their medication this morning. And recovery brings that person to where they need to be. So it looks different for everyone. There is no cure for mental illness. There is no cure for mental illness, but recovery is possible. This last slide talks about working together, because it is really important for us as family members, and it's also important for our loved ones, that we work together as a team. If you are able to work with your loved one's provider, working with that person, talking with that person, it helps your loved one. And I say that because we're the persons that are sitting in the waiting room wondering what's going on in the conversation on the other side of the door. So we have a wealth of information for the provider. We are the family members that know, you know that medication that you gave them? You know those coping skills you suggested they use? It's not happening. That's why we're back here today, and it seems the same, the person's the same as they were when we were here 3 weeks ago. That's not happening. So the providers working with us as family members, it builds for your loved one as well. Looking at this three-legged stool, it takes the loved one, it takes the family member, and it takes the provider, it takes the clinician, all working together. It helps the loved one because they know that they have a team behind them. So recidivism of repeating and going back and forth to the mental health hospital can be slowed down if we're working together as a team. It's good for us, as I said, because we're the ones sitting at home suffering because we don't know what to do for our loved one. We don't know what's going on with them. So we get those hidden illnesses that we'll talk about later in self-care. The stuff that goes on with us because we don't speak up and because we don't know how we can help our loved one. That's going to be really important, and we're going to talk about that this afternoon. Right afternoon. We're going to talk about how you can take care of yourself so that you can feel better also in the midst of this. Because as Michelle said, we're all in this together. It's not just our loved one that's going through a mental health condition. It affects the whole family. And I know that it affects you because you're here today, because we all care. We're all here And we all work in this field because we care, because we all have a loved one. And it may not be your child or your parent or your sibling. It might be your neighbor, you know. It may be the person that you see sitting down the street that you care about. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, is working together, supporting that three-legged stool, working together with the loved one, the family, and also providers. So we're going to prepare now. I think next slide. We're going to take a little break, and we're going to go into the breakout sessions. And while we're preparing to go to the breakout sessions, I want you to stop first, take 15 minutes, go to the tables. There's a wealth of information. There are folders there for you to put the information in. And I want to make sure that everyone picks up, I didn't bring it up here with me. There's something called Assembly Bill 1424. And they're on the table, so everyone make sure that's one piece of information you pick up, because we're going to talk about it in each of the breakout sessions, what it is and what it means. I'm not going to tell you now. So this is a good time, and I guess, Genevieve, you want to tell them about the breakout rooms? Yeah. I'm sorry, we can't do it. We want to find out how many breakout rooms, so people know which breakout.
Yes. So, okay. Breakout room 1, if you signed up for Caring for Youth Under 18, or you are going to go to that group, you're going to be with Michelle, who's got her hand up. She's fabulous. That will be across the courtyard where I'm pointing in a room called Mirrors. And if you're not sure where to find it, connect with Michelle, and she will help shepherd that direction, or any of us can help as well that are working with the event. Sorry? There are signs too, yes. Sometimes I think if you're not familiar with the campus, the signs can even be. But find a person, we'll get you where you need to go. Breakout room 2, my loved one has been arrested. It has been canceled for today. No one signed up for that. But I do want to say, if that is an area of concern and you want to speak with someone before you leave, Lisa is super knowledgeable about that. She's around. I also have a lot of experience with that myself at this point. So we can help begin a process if you want to talk about that. Breakout room 3, or 2 at this point, will be in here in the sanctuary, and that is advocating for adults 18 and over and older adults. So, and that will be Betty.
Yes, so I wanted to mention, first of all, how many people were interested in my loved one has been arrested? Okay, so we want you all to get that information also. So as Genevieve was saying, we're going to share information about that in the session that we have in the sanctuary. So I do want everyone to stand up. I want you to stretch.
Yes, let's stretch right now.
And I want you to go out to those tables, because we have a wealth of information out there, and I want you to fill up your folders.
Yes.
Okay?
Take a break.
But the break is about 15 minutes, so I guess come back together.
Yes, we'll start by 11 for sure.
Yeah. We're definitely starting at 11 o'clock. Okay, all right, I think everyone's here. Good? Okay. Okay, I decided to use the podium so I could sit my things here as we go along with the presentation. You know, I think that many of us, it seems, have concerns about our adult children, our adult, maybe it's adult siblings, or even it's our parents. So I have some information today about adults and older adults. What I have for older adults is specifically more information about getting care for someone with a mental health challenge who is an older adult. Today I'm going to talk a bit about, and she's passing out now, they're passing out the presentation so that you'll have that, because at the end of the presentations there's a wealth of resources that I want you to have and you to be able to go back and look up. Later we're going to pass out other information about specific resources. So I'm going to give you a lot of information, but please know we have handouts for you, okay? So you don't have to try and write everything down. I provided you with that type of a handout so that you can take notes, and if you have questions, we can talk about it later. So in this session, I'm going to talk about a bit about the involuntary hold process, 5150, how families can have a voice in that process, how to prepare yourself for an impending 5150, should that occur, and give you information about what happens in the hospital, the Psychiatric Emergency Services hospital or facility. So we'll go ahead and begin. So what is a 5150? That term is really a welfare institution code. It is what law enforcement uses. It actually means an involuntary hold. That means that someone can be held against their wish, against their desire, for up to 72 hours in a mental health facility. So once someone is taken into a mental health facility, whether they go in voluntarily or whether they are taken there by crisis team or law enforcement, however they get there, once they go behind that door, everything changes, and they can be held up to 72 hours against their will. I always tell people that because I've sat at, for example, John George in the psychiatric emergency area, talking to families and their loved one, and they're like, oh, I'll go ahead and go in, and if I don't like it, doesn't work out, I'll come back out. It doesn't work that way. Once you go in, you can be held against your desire. Now, with the 5150, what it's saying here is that in order for someone to be held on a 5150 hold, held on the involuntary hold, they must meet the criteria. The criteria for a 5150 means that the person is a danger to themselves, they're talking about hurting themselves, they've shown evidence of trying to hurt themselves, and I'm speaking of suicide, or they're a danger to someone else, they're actually threatening someone else, they have actually tried to harm someone else, or they're gravely disabled. Interesting thing about gravely disabled means that they're not able to provide shelter for themselves, so to say, food and shelter. Now, someone can be living in your home and you can be preparing food for them, but they don't eat it because they think that it's poison. That person is still considered gravely disabled. So the person must meet the criteria in order for law enforcement or for the first responder to take them to a mental health hospital. Next slide. So how does the family have a voice? Yes. Well, first of all, we know that the person has a mental health condition. That's already a stipulation for the 5150 hold. We're talking about physical danger. It can be they're threatening someone, and the person is so afraid. You're so afraid by what they're saying that you fear for your safety. That's a danger to you. So it doesn't have to be that they have physically done something. If you're fearful enough that that person is going to do what they say they're going to do, and they have the means to do it, then that's a danger to you. Okay. How does a family have a voice? So I ask that everyone pick up the form outside, the AB 1424 on the table. If you didn't get it, I think we do have it here available, so if you need it, hold your hand up. And also with that is something called, what is an AB 1424? This is an assembly bill that was put together by Alameda County Mental Health Association and also our organization working rather with Alameda County officials to create this bill in the state of California, which says that The information provided in this form, once it is provided to law enforcement, once it is provided to the hospital, it has to become a part of that person's chart at the hospital, but law enforcement should consider the information that the family gives in the process of doing the 5150. Because remember, if the law enforcement comes and they say, this person doesn't really seem to meet the criteria, you know, we're sitting here, we're talking, everything seems to be fine, they're actually saying you are the problem, I don't really have a reason to take them, okay? So this form that I'm going to show you in a moment, it is the family's voice to providers, it is the family's voice to law enforcement. It is a three-part form. We can go to the next picture. What we show in the next picture is page 3. Okay, now this form, the first part, page 1 and 2, is like historical information. Has the person ever been hospitalized? What type of medication do they take? What kind of medication is not good for them? Do they have a substance use problem? All these things are very important, okay, that you take note of. So this is like a historical document for families. We ask that families complete this when things are calm, okay? Fill this out and make 3 copies, okay? So you fill out the first 2 pages. The third page that's shown here, it is a history of the person's behavior. There's a column for when things are, you know, are normal. This is kind of what goes on with the person. Then the column that says now, check off what's going on with that person right now that has led you to call for assistance, that has led you to call 911. What behaviors has you started noticing? They're not sleeping anymore. They're eating a lot more than they used to. They're talking a lot more. Their behavior is starting to become aggressive. These are things that's not normally a part of that person's characteristics. At the bottom of this form, there's a little space where I say if there's some other things that you need to put, such as they just chunked holes in all of our walls and they're trying to pull wires through, make a bullet point and put it there. You don't want to create a whole letter. You don't want to fill up the back page. You want to keep it as simple as possible. Okay. This document is helpful to law enforcement that when they said, they seem to be okay right now, I don't think there's a reason for us to take them. You say, oh, wait a minute. You know, this is what has been going on, and this is a little more information about the person. So it's very helpful at that time. It's also helpful at the hospital because what your loved one is saying when they're in the psychiatric emergency room, what they say about themselves or what's going on with them, that's all the doctors know. That's all the nurse know. Unless they have additional information from you, then they may say, okay, well, what they do is, and I'll tell you more later, but they'll say, so you seem to be calm right now. When they first go into the psychiatric emergency, they offer them medication to calm down, often Haldol. And then they come back and do a triage, and it's like, so you seem to be pretty calm right now. Are you going to hurt yourself? And of course, they'll say no. Are you still thinking about hurting someone else? Oh, no. I'm feeling good. Well, do you have a home? Do you have a place to go? Sure, I can go back to my house with my family. They will quite often be discharged because that's all they knew. They're calm now, and they no longer meet the criteria for a 5150 hold. So this document is very important. Mark?
So Betty, I have a question. This happened with our family. Does this bill make it lawful that they have to see and read and use that information in what they do?
It was designed for that, and it is very helpful for that. But we can't make the police do anything.
You know, you can put together a narrative, and you can hand it to the police, and you can hand it to the doctor,
Right.
and they can put it aside and not read it.
And they can also say, I don't know what that is. But this is a tool, but it's only a tool. This tool is, you know, to me, it's very much like a restraining order. It's a piece of paper. If no one pays attention to it and they push it aside, it doesn't help. It doesn't matter. But I'm telling you, we tell families all the time, when things are quiet, it is good to have this form. It is good to complete this form and to fill it out And then we also say, make 3 copies of it and keep 3 copies. 1, you want to keep your own copy. You want to give it to law enforcement or the crisis team. You want to send it with the paramedics. And you want to get it to the hospital. And I'm getting ahead of myself, so we'll get there. So make 3 copies. Okay? Now, one other thing. Thank you, Mark, for that. Like I said, it's a piece of paper. The law says that it has to be considered, but all officers don't abide by that. They won't always consider it. Well, then we have another document that supersedes the AB 1424, and that's 1194. This one says that even if the person doesn't appear to be imminent danger now, please still take them. And the reason is, we as family members, we know that when law enforcement shows up, our loved ones can pull it together for a few minutes because they don't want to go to the hospital or they don't want to go to jail. They can hold it together for a few minutes and listen to the officer and say, oh, no, everything's fine. We were just having a dispute. You know, it's just something going on in the household. We're okay now. Well, you have a lot more evidence that this was more than that. So this second document says that, I know based on what's going on with the person now, what was going on with them a few minutes ago is going to build, is going to escalate, and I know where this is going. Please take them. And again, I have to say, it's a piece of paper. They may or may not abide by it, but it has been very helpful in many cases that if the officers know about AB 1424, that they listen and that they do receive it. I'll mention to you also, our organization works closely with the OPD, and we provide training to officers during their crisis intervention training. And we go in on a monthly basis. We were working initially with the new recruits. Now we work with any officer who has not gone through crisis intervention training. We share with them the family voice. We share with them the voice of the consumer to understand what the person is going through. And my thing at this meeting is to say to the officers, it's a great opportunity for us to all sit together and listen to each other, to learn from each other. We as family members, when we call you, we want you to come and help us with the situation. I tell them, I said, we don't look how we normally look. When you come to our home, we've been up for days, we've been up for nights, we have gone through everything we could to try and help our loved one. So when we get to our wits' end, we call you to help us to get them to a mental health hospital. Consumers that come with us for the meeting, they have a chance to say, when you told me to stand still and put my hands behind my back, this is what was going through my head. Everything that I was hearing, the cars on the street, your voice, the crowd, anyone else, everything was on the same level. I could not hear you giving me instructions any better than I could other sounds or the voices in my own head. So it's an opportunity for the officers to understand what we as family members are going through and what our loved ones are going through when they come to the house. So many officers excuse me, have received this information about the AB 1424. In OPD, in Berkeley, throughout Alameda County. Also, we get officers that come to our training from Modesto, from Milpitas. We have also done training with State Highway Patrol all the way to Sacramento. We started this training in 2011, and it still goes on every month now. We also do a training with dispatchers for the same reason, for them to understand when you get this erratic voice and behavior on the other line, this is what we're going through. This is what has been happening in our household that has gotten us to this point now that we're calling you for help, so that they understand a little bit more about us and what we're going through. Next slide. So a little bit about the crisis plan. Again, when things are quiet and calm in your household, this is when you want to prepare. This is when you want to think about, what is your support? When things start to get difficult, who do I usually call? Who can I sit and have a cup of tea with and just talk about where I'm at right now? Do this for yourself. Who is your support? Is it a family member? Is it someone from your church? Is it someone from your bowling team? Who is your support? You need to think about that when things are calm. And then think about for your loved one. Who is their support? Who do they reach out to? Do they have someone that they reach out to? Do they have a RAP plan, Wellness Recovery Action Plan? We have a team of advocates. As a matter of fact, all of our advocates have recently been trained in that area to help someone think about, what do I need? What helps to calm me? What do I need when I get to the end of my rope? What do I need to do before I get to the end of my rope? Who is my support system? Lisa's one of our teachers for the RAP training as well. We provide RAP for family members because we need ourselves. We need to know who our support is and what we need to do to take care of ourselves. Next slide. What you need to know before you call 911. Most importantly, do not exaggerate. There was a time when people would say that the person has a gun because you want the police to come quicker. That's not the way to do it. And we all know from what we've seen in the news that we don't want to exaggerate that there's a weapon involved if there really isn't. We want to be clear with the dispatcher as to why we're calling. We want to reinforce that we need help. Something I learned from our work with the dispatchers is that when you call 911, there's actually two people listening. I didn't know that. You have the operator, the person you're talking to, and you also have the dispatcher that is working to send the proper unit out. So based on what you say is what you will get. For example, if it's a medical emergency, then they can send the fire department. If there are no weapons involved, there's a different crises team they can send. If there are weapons involved, they have to send law enforcement because they're trained to protect and to take care of the citizens and to stay safe for themselves. So it's really, really important that you don't put something out there that's not true. Same thing with this AB 1424. You don't want to say something that is not accurate about your loved one. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But keep it in mind, you don't want to say this, what's not true just because you want to get a good response. So don't over-exaggerate a situation. When you call 911, ask for an officer who's been trained in crisis intervention. That's CIT. If you don't remember crisis intervention, ask for a CIT officer. They may or may not be available at the time, but your chances are better if they are, because they have been trained to listen. They have been trained to hear both sides and to understand a little better, and chances are they know what an AB 1424 is. Okay? Ask, can you have two officers to please respond? Officers are different. They have different personalities. You want someone who's going to be compassionate, and chances of getting two people, one of them will be compassionate, you know? So you have a right to ask for two officers to come. And keep in mind that, again, the officers come to take care of a situation, to protect, and to keep everyone safe. So we want to be careful, certainly, of what we're asking of the officers. Next slide. 911 dispatch. They want to know the 5 W's. Where, what, when, who, and are there weapons involved? The operator wants to know, where's the person that I'm coming to talk to? What was going on? Please be concise and clear with what the situation is. When did it happen? We don't want to talk about what happened 3 weeks ago. Talk about right now. What is going on that led you to call for help, that led you to dial 911? Who are they coming to see? What is that person wearing is very important. Because, you know, in a situation when we often call 911, let's say it was a family event going on and behavior just went really bad, and we can no longer really try and calm this person down. So you've got a lot of people standing around, a lot of behaviors going on. It would be beneficial for them to know who they're coming to see, who they're coming to talk to, okay? There was this interesting incident. There was it was a case, well, she was a program director of a board and care. And the person there, the young lady's behavior had just went bad. It was so bad that the young lady was throwing plates at the program director. She was mad at her, and they were going back and back. And the program director said, she's just had it. So she called the police. So by the time the police got there, the young lady was sitting on the side, and she's like, look at her. See how she's acting? I tried to have a conversation with this. No, you see those plates? No, she did that. She did that. I was just trying to protect myself. The situation got so bad because now the program director is furious. I've done everything I can help this person, and now look at how she's... You know what happened? They had to take the program director in their car to calm her down, because they had no evidence of who was really causing the problem. This young lady was now sitting quietly. So keep in mind, you know, our behavior gets really out there too. At that point when we call, we have had it. We have done everything that we could. And we need to make sure that they know who they're actually coming to see. So what is that person wearing? Are there any weapons involved? Are there any weapons? Are there any weapons in the house? Does the person throw knives when they're very upset? Well, then make sure there are no knives available for that person to throw. So when you call 911, remember the 5 W's. What, where, when, who, and are there weapons involved? Next. So preparing. How do you prepare your home? How do you prepare for this situation that you know is about to happen? Number 1, turn on all the lights in the house. Turn on the lights so that the crises team or law enforcement, whoever comes, so they can clearly see what's going on. Designate someone, one person, who will go outside to meet law enforcement or the crises team, and they will take the AB 1424, and they will give it to the person and explain to the person what it is, whether or not they know. It's a good time to give them a copy of the information so that they can read over it in a quiet setting. Hopefully your loved one is still in the house. Maybe your loved one's sitting outside. Quite often your loved one may have jumped the fence and ran. That happens too. We all know that, okay? But you want to make the environment as safe as possible and as clear as possible. So turn on all the lights. If you have pets, put them away. Little bitty dogs get a little vicious when someone with a uniform comes around. My daughter has 2, I know. So it doesn't matter. Big dog, look, put your pets away. If there's children in the home, see if you can take them next door to the neighbor's house. See if you can call a family member to come and get the children so they're not in the midst of this situation. They don't understand what's going on, and it can be really difficult for them as well. So try to make sure someone can take your children. Again, put away any weapons. If you know that the person has a gun collection locked away so-and-so place, let the officers know. Okay? You want to be clear. You don't want to hide that, but you want to keep it clear if there are weapons that the person can get to. If you can remove them beforehand, please do that. Questions about that? Preparing the home? One thing you don't want to do, if the person has destroyed your house, and this is a situation I know has happened to Michelle in talking to a family member. They called her because the person has punched holes in the walls, they've flipped over couches, they threw things everywhere. It was a horrible mess. And they were calling 911 because they couldn't take it anymore. But before the officers got there, they cleaned up everything. They hid the holes in the wall and everything because they didn't want anyone to see how messy it is. Don't do that. Do not disrupt or clean up the situation. Leave it as it is. Turn on the lights so the officers understand what you have gone through. Okay. Next. Your loved one. I'm sorry. Your loved one. Yeah. Sorry, I put a few acronyms in there. Yes.
Also, sometimes when a loved one is violent, all the officers, sometimes caregivers get a little intimidated or scared for their loved one that they lied.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of try to cover it up once the loved one has calmed down, like, oh, we don't need your help anymore. And I had a situation where a loved one had their loved one be violent to them. I called, and my loved one ended up looking as the aggressor because the person got violent and they had scratches on their face and stuff, and because she was lying to protect them, they had to take her. And I asked the officers, like, no, I told you who you're coming for. And they're like, it's California law that if it is a situation where somebody's violent to one another, especially domestic violence, they have to take who they think the aggressor is. And so sometimes lying can put you in a situation that's not so safe.
Very true. Very true. Absolutely. That's why in the situation, it's just important that we stay clear, that we stay concise, that we stay honest, and that covering up for someone just in that situation or cleaning up the house because you don't want anyone to know really what went on, it doesn't help the situation. You know, we want them to understand that we called you to help us because we're at the end of our rope. We need help from you. And so we have to show them exactly what the situation is. Thanks, Mary, for adding that. That's good. And this, too, speaks to thinking about first responders, thinking about the police officers. Safety first. We called them to help us. It is important that we let them do what we called them to do. We need to stay as calm as possible. It's not always easy, but we need to try and stay calm. We need to allow the officers to do what they came there to do. Answer their questions. Keep it brief. Don't try to give the history of, well, you know, yeah, he's 38 now, but when he was 4 years old, they don't have time for that. Keep it to the moment. Keep it brief, okay? Give them the information that they're needing. You know, if you have information about your loved one's case manager, when the person is going to the hospital, that is very helpful. That is useful information to definitely put in the AB 1424. Case manager's name, number, and whatever medication that you know the person's taking. If the person is using substances, put it in the form as well. If your loved one is using meth, put it in the form. If they're using heroin, it's important. If they're using marijuana, because all of that alters their medication that they're taking as well, the psychotropic medication. So be honest. Put everything here, okay? And once again, AB 1424, make sure you have a copy of that available, okay? So, next slide. Where are they taking my loved one? We always wonder that. But you know what's interesting? When the first responder comes, when law enforcement comes, when the paramedic is there, they may or may not tell you where they're actually taking your loved one. I just provided this list for you of some of the more familiar hospitals that they take our loved ones for psychiatric reasons. But also keep in mind, if your loved one has diabetes, and they're in the midst of having taken their medication for a while, and you're calling because of a 5150, they're going to take that person to the medical hospital first because they're going to treat the medical situation before they treat the psychiatric situation. So know that. That's the reason why I have Highland Hospital on here and even Altabates. If it's a medical reason, before they take the person, let's say, to Herrick or transfer them to Herrick, they're going to treat the person for the medical situation first. Now, I also put this on here because, like I say, when they may not tell you where they're taking the person, and you may decide to follow the ambulance or follow them to wherever they're going, and then you get to the hospital and you say, oh, I wanted to give you this about my loved one. Is John Joe here? The hospital staff will tell you, I cannot confirm or deny whether or not that person is here. We get it too. We've figured out ways to get around it, so definitely work with an advocate if you get to this situation. But we get that as well. The HIPAA laws about someone in a mental health situation are so much more strict than someone in a medical condition. I had a friend that I couldn't find, and I started calling around to different hospitals and found them in such and such emergency room. But when it comes to mental health, they're not going to give you any information. And just to know, it's even more strict if the person is using a substance. If you're calling a substance center or program, they're not going to give you any information there at all. But this is such a useful tool that I suggest if you know the person is there, you take it to the desk anyway. Say, I know that you can't tell me if John Joe is here, but here's some information. I'd like you to give it to the doctors back there. And the doctors and the social workers are very excited to get it. We help families to complete the form if they need assistance, but also we fax the information. If you can fax the information to the hospital, it's just as well. Get the fax number for the PES, Psychiatric Emergency Area, Services Area. Send the form there because it is still useful and it will get to the right person and get to the right chart. Because once again, the only information they have there in the triage area is what the person is telling them. Okay. And this one I'll go through really quickly. About the next slide, psychiatric emergency room. This is just a really quick overview. Fax the information, drop it off if you can. No one will tell you they're there, but at least the information gets there. You want to ask the desk if so-and-so has completed a release of information. If the person's actually in the hospital and you get a chance, like for example, if they've been admitted into the hospital and you go to the desk and you're here to see so-and-so, it's a different situation because they're already admitted. This is not like the psych emergency. So you're there to see the person and they say, oh, they don't want to talk to you. Well, did they fill out a release of information? Because if no one has asked about it, it may not have happened. Once you ask, they need to give you an answer, yes or no. Did the person complete a release of information? Did you offer it to them? Another good person to know at that point is hopefully you would have known who the person's case manager is, but there's a team of patients' rights advocates. They also work for the Mental Health Association. They work inside the different mental health facilities, and they are there to take care of the patient. They are there for the person if, for example, if the person has been held for 72 hours and your loved one says, okay, I'm good, I want to go home, but the doctors are like, you're not good, we really need you to stay longer. That person is entitled to a hearing to determine whether or not they need to stay. So, a copy of this has been filed in the person's chart once they've been admitted to the hospital. Also, you can put it in an envelope and say, for the hearing officer. So this would go to the hearing officer to help determine, can you keep them a little longer so they can get treatment? And it does help with the determination. The patients' rights advocates are there to make sure that the person's rights are not being violated, that they have someone with them at the hearing. But they also tell me that usually when it gets to that point, the patient will usually listen to the advocate as well as the doctors and often say, okay, I'll stay for a couple of more days. Okay, and so they start to receive treatment. And as you know, there's no forced treatment in this county. So the person has to agree to getting that treatment unless the situation becomes more advanced and they're hospitalized in a longer-term facility. But at this point, the person still has a choice. So you want to make sure that the information that you put in here that goes to the hearing officer is correct, because during the hearing process, the hearing officer may read it out loud. They may say, your mom says that you've experienced this, 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 and this. If it's not true, you don't want it to be there. If it is true, it can still make it a difficult situation. You can ask on that envelope that the hearing officer not read it out loud, in front of your loved one as well. Okay. Let's see. The other information, you can see it right here. One thing to keep in mind, too, if your loved one's been admitted to the hospital for a period of time, ask if you can be part of the discharge team. Talk with the social worker. You want to build a good relationship with the social worker. But family advocates at our organization are a great tool for you at this point. If your loved one is admitted into the hospital, we will go. We will meet with you. We will meet with the doctor. We will meet with the social worker. We will meet with whatever team that you need us to meet with and to talk to on behalf of your loved one in support for you. Because as family members, like I said, we feel a lot better if our loved one is being taken care of. Okay. So next I have lots of community resources that I was going to share with you, which we have copies of them. There's some information about voluntary respite programs that your loved one can for themselves. They can decide they want to go and stay somewhere overnight or maybe check in for a few days up to a couple of weeks. And then I also have information about behavioral health care programs that are available to support your loved one as well. And I have the phone numbers and things where you can contact them. And the last I have, you can flip through. The next one is about crises teams and who comes and who you can call and how you can reach them. But I want to stop right now because I want Lisa to be able to share some information that ties into this about your loved one has been arrested. Okay?
Thank you, Ben. So you can actually leave that crisis slide up there for a minute because it does tie directly into it. So we have the crisis teams. I don't know if you've heard of them. We've got them up here. We have mobile crisis team, which is no age limit. We have the MET team. We have a CAT team. So there's multiple different forms of a crisis team. And some of those forms that come out to the home are officers, clinician and an officer, 2 clinicians, a clinician and a pair. It just depends on what team and what area you're in. I know Berkeley has their own mobile crisis, the Berkeley Mobile Crisis Team as well. So when the mobile crisis team comes out to the home, they're looking to evaluate. They're looking to understand what's going on in that crisis. Can we help, or are we at a situation that it is a 51-50? So it's that in between, right? It's that I don't necessarily need to call 911, but I also need somebody to talk to my loved one. The reason I think this crisis team falls into the my loved one's been arrested is because sometimes we'll call 911 and they won't take them. I've heard people make those conversations. Or they've gone to John George or to another facility and been released within those 72 hours. And then what happens? Over the age of 18, like Betty shared, is they have the choice to get those services. Even on a hold, they don't have to take medication. That hold is only to hold them and to support them and hope they get that medication or therapy or whatever it is. And so they have the right to that to take that medication or not. So sometimes what happens is our loved ones don't want that support and don't want that help. And unfortunately, then we turn into this question of, okay, now my loved one has gone out and done something that he shouldn't have done within that crisis. If it's bipolar, maybe he's had a mania where he's out and just buying everything from the stores, but he's just putting stuff in bags. Or she's just walking into a restaurant, eating and walking out. Or maybe they're hearing voices and a voice in their head told them that they live in this particular house and they try to walk into that house. You know, as simplistic as these, up to, unfortunately, injuring somebody, hurting somebody, hurting themselves. And so we get to a situation where the police are involved and they're arrested. Well, what do we do at that point? Our hands are tied, right? But they're not. And we have other advocates who are passing out information, so they're gonna come through and give you some of this paperwork. But if your loved one is arrested, one of the pages that they're giving you is steps, and this is on our website too. And it's different steps of what do I do? Step 1, support your relative. If they're calling you and telling you they've been arrested, or if somebody else has called you and let you know that they're arrested, how can you support them? We've talked about the AB 1424 multiple times. If somebody's been arrested, there's another form. It's called the Inmate Mental Health Form. It's also will be passed out, but it's also on our website. You fill out basic information, and at the bottom, there's the fax number that you send it to the jail. And it goes to their officers, their mental health officers. And it gives them information about if there's been a diagnosis, if they've been hospitalized, if they're on medication, things like that. So it's supporting if they do need medication or they have been on medication, that's something that can be offered to them. That's something that can help if they're willing to take it, right? And to get them on that right path. The next step is contacting the jail, right? We talked about the form. Step after that, fax this, and then advocacy. If your loved one's going through a mental health challenge and they've been arrested, court proceedings are gonna come up. As an advocate, that is something we can attend with you. We can help you navigate some of those court systems. There's also another program, and it's on the paperwork, and it's on page 2, and it's called CAPS, Court Advocacy Project. And so I even spoke with them this week in our research to just make sure we have everything. And they're there to help also support with what's going on and the charges and information to help you move forward with that. Reaching out to an advocate to get some support and see what can be done. Understanding the charges. Step 5 is in there. What we talked about is reaching out, but it also has under step 5 the public defender's offices in Alameda County. Reaching out to the public defender, and I also say reaching out to the district attorney. It's making sure they understand what our loved ones are going through, because they're seeing what they were arrested for. They're not necessarily seeing the bigger picture. So again, that's step by step. I just want to make sure you have some basic information with that in the quick amount of time we have. One of the other forms they're giving you is Santa Rita Jail is our county jail. And at Santa Rita, when you're released and you walk out, there's a trailer. And I even made sure there was a picture at the bottom so that we have that information. If your loved one is in a good space, that is something to encourage them, to support them with. When they walk out of being released, they can walk straight over. Their hours right now are 2 to 10. The county jail, when I spoke with them this week, said their goal is to release inmates only necessarily during those hours. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. But between 2 and 10 right now, they can walk over to that trailer, and as it shows on here, they can connect them to short-term services, long-term services. They can provide a space for them. They can talk about their conditions. They can get help with contacting other services if they don't have somewhere to go, they don't have food, they don't have shelter, things like that. That's all there and accessible if they want it and they're willing to accept it. And so I want to make sure that we all know if anybody gets into this situation and they're willing to move forward, that is there. And then I know this is yes.
Gets out of Santa Rita Jail can get housing at least
So they can go over, they have specialists that are over there and they work to either depend, and again, it's all dependent, but there's residentials, there's crisis centers that do 2 weeks, there's vouchers, there's different options. I can't confirm that every single person would be housed, but there are options. There are more options than even I realize until we go out and we reach out to these places and go, oh, you could do that. I had a call 2 days ago with a family who's been paying for hotel rooms, and we were able to, not through this program, but through another program, reach out, and she was able to get a hotel voucher for the next day. So there are these resources out there. The one I'm sharing right now is specifically as coming out of Santa Rita. So yes, there are services there. If they're willing, and if they have to meet certain criteria, either a diagnosis or at least a background in mental health, things like that. Sure.
My observation and experience in that area so far has been that when there is long-term advocacy and support, like if you've been walking throughout part of the process or the majority of the process, that can really help raise gears because it demonstrates this person is seen, they are cared for by an individual, or in some cases that I've watched, they've been a part of by a group of community members. And it's not that that is like favoritism, it's more like it wakes people up in the system that this person is being walked through this process, and that can help open doors. So I think the longer you can stay in the process, the better, because you can do research while someone's incarcerated that will help move the process along so that it's not like, well, now they're getting exited and there's no plan. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say that's also true even in terms of your loved one being in the hospital, going into a facility, going into a program. It's really great to connect with us because once again, it shows that this person has a team behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the other thing I wanted to add to that, which many people don't know, is that if your loved one is going through a mental health crisis, there is an option, depending on their charges and depending on the situation, for what's called behavioral health court. And what behavioral health court, and again, it's voluntary, which means if there's a mental health concern going on and they've been arrested, they can request behavioral health court, and if they meet qualifications and the judge agrees, they would be released, depending on the situation, to a residential home or into a residential situation or an IOP, which is an outpatient program, again, depending on the situation, and they're followed for 2 years by the court. They have to check in every week with the court, but at the end of that 2 years, they have a graduation, which I've attended only virtually, but I didn't get the opportunity to do it in person, but they have a little graduation, and those charges that were on their record are then released from their record. So it's that effort that they've made, right? They've spent 2 years working on themselves, moving forward, and then this is the positive consequence that they receive from that behavioral health court. And again, it's all individual, but it is something, to advocate for if that comes up. And then the last piece, I know this is 18 and over, but I also want to just acknowledge that you guys have received the Juvenile Justice, so there is some Juvenile Justice information in there. If somebody, a loved one or a family member or a friend or however it works, is under the age of 18, there's also support for that if they end up doing something that unfortunately puts them within that juvenile justice system. So it is something we can also help and support with. So I am going to ask Betty to come up, and we'll both be up here, and if anybody has any questions, I think we have 2 minutes left. I know it's not a lot, but yes.
because you're talking about calling. I even tried to call for my neighbor. You have to first pay $25 for this for-profit phone service, and even you can't even get a call. And even though he tried to call out, you can't even receive the calls. I don't know if, like, regular citizens, I didn't even pay attention until I started having to because I got appointed by the city council member. So, are there awareness efforts? Are you aware that this is what's happening? Because this is also happens to be the 80th anniversary of Roosevelt signing EO 9066, which legally imprisoned 110,000 Japanese Americans. Santa Rita Jail today is our EO 9066. I mean, so I am trying to spread the word far and wide about this, and I don't know how much you're aware of it, but that's what it's speaking out about. And I figured, you know, this is a very compassionate audience, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing.
Give you the mic. While Betty's grabbing the mic, I do want to say that this is one of the first presentations here, and that is our goal. COVID being a restriction for a lot of things, our goal is we have our outreach coordinator here, our advocates here, and that's one part of FERC is to get out there and get our name out there and get information out there so people do have that support. But I'll let Betty take over.
Okay, if there's no other questions at this time, we're going to prepare to switch reels. We're now going to talk about something that is important to all of us, your self-care. So Michelle's coming back in and give us about 2 minutes and we'll be set to move on and talk about self-care.
Hello. Is that better? I wasn't holding the mic correctly before, and I don't promise I'll keep holding it. All right, so where are we here? Oh, we're going to talk about ourselves. Yay! How to take care of us. Us. This is not selfish. This is helpful. Because if we can't care for ourselves, could we care for anybody else? No. And guess what? Our heads are still connected to the rest of our body. Is everybody still there? Okay, good. So basically what we're going to do right now is we're going to have a conversation about our health and how to take care of ourselves and how what our body goes through when we are trying to support our loved ones, our family, our jobs, our neighbors, our community, because we're doing a lot of little things. He's looking at me. I got it up here. We're doing a lot of things. You know, it's just not taking care of our loved ones. Some of us are out there working. Some of us are doing things in the community. Some of us are just trying to survive. And how do we do this? How do we balance this out? I want you to know what stress your body is going through. And hopefully it's not. I'm hoping that you are already caring for yourselves. So this is what's important at this moment. So, oh, she's on the other side. Can we switch over? So, what is this that you're showing, Betty?
In the event of a decompression, an oxygen mask will automatically appear in front of you. To start the flow of oxygen, pull the mask towards you. Place it firmly over your nose and mouth. Secure the elastic band behind your head and breathe normally. Although the bag does not inflate, oxygen is flowing to the mask. If you are traveling with a child or someone who requires assistance, secure the mask. Secure your mask first. Secure your mask first, and then assist the other person. Keep your mask on until a uniformed crew member advises you to remove it.
But think about that. They say that if you go flying. They're telling you, if you don't put that mask on yourself first, you probably will run out of oxygen, and then you're not going to be able to help whoever you're assisting, correct? Well, we need to care for ourselves and then assist who we're taking care of. Does that make sense? Okay, I see your head shaking. Uh-oh. What? Pointing at my chin. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, then. So let's talk about family members and caregivers. We want to talk about this here. So, Lisa, will you take that for me? Oh.
So family members and caregivers, we've been talking about this all day, right? So all of us in this room are a family or caregiver, and we're the person that's providing possibly housing, possibly money, the assistance with the daily living, transportation, emotional support, right? All of that. And we talked about earlier that family doesn't mean biological family. Family is anyone that cares for somebody else, which is every single one of us in this room, or we wouldn't be here. So every single one of us is a caregiver for somebody else, even if it's the person sitting next to me. Next slide.
Ooh, the effects of stress on our bodies. Look at that. I want you to look at those pictures there where it's actually, and I guess I'll turn around to kind of see, the parts that, the brain, the heart, your stomach. How many of you guys get stomach aches or you don't feel good because you're stressing? Your stomach is acidy. Your heart, sometimes we have a panic attacks or something like that where we're starting to sweat. We're starting to feel pain in our heart. I'm hoping it's not a heart attack. It also talks about the risk of diabetes, constipation, your digestive system, your reproductive organs, your skin. Oh my goodness. All of a sudden I'm starting to break out again. Why is that? Because I'm stressing. And I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I'm up for hours because I'm stressing. My body is going through a lot because I'm so worried and I need to get things done. And I got to remember, do I have to go to the doctors today? Or wait a minute. I know they just called me. I got to go to the school now because something happened at the school. Oh, no. Okay. And then after that, I got to go back to work again. My body is tearing apart. Let's talk about this here. If I keep stressing, guess what? Does your body kind of times say, ooh, I got a little pain here? Do you have that sometimes, that you get a little pain and then you just ignore it? Right? And then you get another little pain and it gets a little worse, but you ignore it. So then your body says, you know what? I've tried to tell you several times to get some help. You're not getting help, I'm shutting you down. And so now your body is in the bed or at the doctor's or at the hospital because you did not pay attention to the little pings that were going on. And your body was talking to you. Your brain was talking to you. That's connected to the body. I'm having medical condition at this moment. So it's real important here to understand and do yourself in a self-evaluation. Should I go to the doctor when I'm only not feeling well, or should I go before I'm not feeling well? Which one would you do? Just go, you go, see, someone told on themselves. Your stress, it breaks you down. So you should actually do a physical self-examination of yourself when you're doing well, so you'll know when you're not doing well, the changes in your body, your changes in your health. This is important. You need to know how well you're doing. So let's say if I do a self-assessment, I go see the doctor, because the doctor has what do they call it, a baseline? And then if you come back later on because you have other things going, they can check, say, ooh, wow, your blood pressure has just gone up. Look at the numbers that you had before, and now look at the numbers that you have now. So you want to go do that, and you want to go get a baseline from your doctors. So that's one of the things. Another thing is knowing yourself. When's the best time of the day are you okay? Have a lot of energy, you can focus better. When is that? Know that time period. Know when you're fresh. I'm good in the morning. As the day goes on, my energy level goes down. We'll have to talk about why that happens. But know then you can get and do what you need to do when that time of the day is good for you. And then you need to let the rest of the family know too. Don't call me at 10 o'clock in the morning. My body's still waking up. So they know it's a good time. You can call me around 12-ish, I should be okay. Good nutrition. We always hear about that. So if you're stressed, some of us eat all kind of food that is not healthy for us because we just need to gobble something down. And because we're running around so much and doing so many things, we just pick and go. How do we not do that? Can we have an apple in our bag? Can we have an orange? Can we have a healthy granola bar in our bag? Can we have water? Things that you can take and have in your bag all the time instead of grabbing and going and eating, bag of chips, I'm good, let's go. No nutritional value in that. Well, there might be, it's a potato. I don't know, we'll think about it. Not fried, okay. Hydration, and I'm the worst. I do not drink a lot of water. I'm not thirsty. I don't get thirsty. However, I need to hydrate my body. I might not feel thirsty, but my body's saying, excuse me, other things in your side you need to work. Can you lubricate me? So you have to think about drinking your water or whatever. Exercise. Exercise, if you don't like exercising, find something that you do like to do, that gets you moving. Even if you take a couple of steps every day, further and further and further, to walk. Put your little shoes by the door and you can walk. Even if it's going up and down your stairs, if you have one in your house, something that gets you moving. If you like dancing, go ahead and dance. If you can find a partner that's good with you, that remind you, hey, I'm getting ready to go so-and-so, are you ready to go with me? Biking, go out to nature, hike, smell whatever needs to be smelled, and go do whatever you can do to help yourself. Sleep. Okay, this is a good one because a lot of us lose a lot of sleep. Do you know that sleep restores your body's energy? Repairs muscle tissues? And guess what? If we get some sleep, then my brain might work a little better because it helps with sharpness. It helps you balance. It helps you become creative. Get sleep if you can. If you need to take a nap or you feel that you are tired and you can take a nap, we might need to think about that in our office. Can we find a place to take a nap for a couple of seconds? Oh, she just told me. So inadequate sleep, we need our minds to be sharp. We need our bodies to get back together. So if you get 20 to 30 minutes, okay, now this is not to say you should not get the whole 8 hours of sleep that you need, but it improves your mood and your alertness and your performance. So if you can take a little quick nap at lunchtime, set your clock so you're not late to get back to work, that might be helpful. And then make sure you do your medical care. Let's talk about how can we reduce stress. So we just talked about some things. So can you call out a few things for me? I want you to think about and tell us how you can reduce stress. What's good for you? Oh boy, nobody. Yes. Meditation. Ooh, I like it. Okay. Playing music. So meditation, what do you do for meditation? What type of meditation do you do?
Right now I'm just doing online guided meditation.
Okay, online guidance meditation. You found something good. Music, what type of music do you do? Or listen to, or play?
Generally I start the morning with sacred music.
Sacred music? Mm-hmm.
And then during the course of the day, depending on what I'm doing, if I need something more energetic, I play fast music.
Okay, great. Whatever helps us. That's wonderful. Okay, yes?
I've become really disciplined about stretching every day.
Oh,
And also,
stretching, she said.
I didn't used to do that regularly, and it helps a ton. I also have gotten really disciplined about making sure that I go to bed at the same time. Like, I can't always control that, but like 90% of the time I can. And I've become realistic.
So when you go to bed, does that mean you're still have the TV on or looking at your computer?
Okay, so I like to go to bed. I'm a baker, which means I'm up early. So I go to bed.
Did you say baker or banker?
A baker.
Baker. Huh? Well, she could be in a banker. They get up early too.
I didn't used to have a bedtime routine. I just sort of left it to chance. And I'm single and I don't have children, but I do have housemates who have significant mental health issues sometimes. And so begin to realize, like, it's as though I do have children, quite honestly, like, because their rhythms are not healthy all the time, and they're unpredictable. And so I'm the regulator in the house, and if I don't regulate myself, things go haywire more quickly than otherwise. So I started instituting a bedtime routine, and it was like, okay, I'm gonna make sure I drink enough water earlier in the day, so I'm not getting up in the middle of the night. I'm gonna make sure, I'm bad at this one, but it's like turn the screen off, so I'm not bathing myself in blue light past a certain hour. I'm gonna do something that feels, my mom is really good at drinking tea in the evening. It slows her down, right? It's like things that are self-nurturing that I didn't used to be good at. I'm starting to really think about how do I self-nurture in the evening so that my gears are slowing down, so that when I go to bed I actually fall asleep and I sleep through the night.
Lucky you. Thank you. Thanks everyone for sharing. How about a few other things? Let me see what I have here. Oh, one of the things which I have to do, which I did yesterday, made sure, actually I did it a couple of days, but then I had to change what I was doing. But I do pre-plan or get my wardrobe ready for the next day. Because that's a stressor for me, that I have to take out time to go now find something to put on for the next day, which I'm probably gonna be late. So I need to do it ahead of time. We did hear about breathing techniques. Oh no, we actually meditation, but breathing techniques. Journalism, journaling. And there's different ways to journal. I know someone that takes pictures. Instead of doing a lot of writing, they actually put pictures in their journal to tell how they feel. I know someone that quilts for journal. It's just amazing. Counseling. How about creative expressions, whether it's dancing or listening to music or artwork. Support. That's another thing to help. What support groups can you go to? Setting limits. Do we say no at times? Or do we keep saying yes and we keep stretching ourselves, and we keep going and going instead of saying, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that today. Maybe another time. So no is very important for our well-being. The other thing is letting go. There's so much built up in ourselves. How can we find ways of letting go? Can we talk to someone? Will that help? Can we do something to let go what's heavy on our heart and work through it? So do I want to wait and then we can do one later on for breathing? She has one up there I love doing for breathing, but I'm going to pull back right now and then we'll do a breathing exercise afterwards if we have time. Because breathing, can I at least explain about breathing? Or you want me to wait? You want me to wait?
We can explain it.
Oh, thank you. I can explain about breathing. Are you all breathing right now? Uh-oh, she has a hand raised. Oh, games, yes.
With 3 of my friends, 4 of us, we do it online.
Yes.
I tell you, just laughing. Sometimes it's the only time I laugh, but it's very good.
Great. Yes, games, that's a good one. So breathing, we all are breathing, right? So you take your breath with you wherever you go. And so breathing helps us, believe it or not, you can control your breathing. You need to become aware of your breathing. When you become aware of your breathing, there's times that you'll feel that you're really holding your breath because something's going on, so you're holding your breath. So you'll learn how your different breathing methods are going, to become aware of them. Try to control those breathing methods so you can feel a little freer and flowing of your breathing going back and forth. And then I'm not going to go into it too much. I'm going to let you continue, and then we can talk about breathing hopefully later on and do an exercise.
I think we will have some time. We've kind of already gone over the next slide, but I'll reiterate a little bit of information with that alternate healing. We talked about the tea. I know that is definitely Michelle. She shared that with us a few times of her evening tea routine. And then in the mornings, and I share this because I enjoy it, in the mornings when we come into work, we sign in virtually. And we were, for a while there, it was like, okay, what flavor today? What are you drinking today? And we get all these interesting teas. We talked about dancing. Zumba is also an exercise with dancing. And then I heard games. I also have an online community that I game with because it's a different experience. It's people that don't necessarily see the everyday of what I'm going through, so I can just enjoy that time and laugh and have a good conversation. Betty, we look at the picture of the yarn and the knitting, and it reminds me of Betty and through this COVID and her knitting, and that's a different way of healing, right? It's taking that time to do something for yourself, but you're also creating something beautiful. Same with painting up there. You're creating something that just means so much.
Share it too.
Yes, and she does share with us. So I got some really pretty stuff. So should have wore some, but it'd make me warm right now. But yeah, so there's this, alternate idea of healing it is that it's not just necessarily going and taking medication or going and talking to a therapist, which are all wonderful things, but it's reaching out and doing these extra things. Now, Michelle shared that, have somebody there that's gonna go walking with you and reminding you. And I'm gonna steal this from Michelle because it goes into the next slide, and I absolutely love this. When I came on to FERC, one of the things that came out of my training and that I absolutely took to heart is that she shares in identifying your support, and she shares that she reminds the loved ones that she's working with to take that self-care, whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's an entire evening for a dinner, watching a movie, taking that time where you're not consciously thinking of your loved one or consciously thinking of what all the stressors are. And what she taught me and what I've taken in is having that support person or having somebody check in. If you say you're gonna go out to a movie or go out and enjoy your dinner, have somebody that'll follow up with you and say, hey, how was that dinner? Oh, you went on vacation last week. How was that? It's kind of that accountability, right? In that you are taking that time, even if it's something small, to work through yourself. And that's where that identifying your support right comes in. It can be family, friends. We've talked about support groups. Definitely we're here at our church listening and being a part of the spiritual community. There's mentoring and coaching. I know we shared about roommates. There's also outreach workers and case managers and therapists. Those are all part of our support. Even the person sitting next to you can be that support. They've been here with you through today. They know that, even if you don't have a direct loved one, you have people in your life that you're a caregiver of. And so it's really important to continue to identify who your support systems are, because when it comes to a crisis, we're gonna forget. We're gonna forget because we're working through that crisis. And so when this is in the front of our minds and we're keeping conscious when everything is going well and that accountability, these support systems are gonna be there and be able to be in place for us.
Next slide. Okay, so now we just have a few community resources that we wanted to share. We did pass out earlier a group of caregiver support groups that we have at our organization. They are virtual right now, so you can log into any of the groups that are on the, you have the handouts that we gave information about our support groups. If it says Oakland or it says Livermore, it really doesn't matter because they're virtual. So we have support groups almost every day of the week that one of our advocates or two of our advocates are certainly working with. And we encourage you to attend more than one support group. It's nice to be in a place where everyone has a similarity. And one thing our previous director used to say is that it's a members-only club. Everyone at our support group has to be a family member. We don't allow looky-loos. We don't allow students to come in. Everyone has to be a family member. And you don't have to share. You may just want to listen. You may just want to be in the company of others that are going through a similar situation. So we encourage that. Also, you'll notice on here, I have listed other support groups that you can check into the websites of the different NAMIs, National Alliance on Mental Illness affiliates that are in the area. And they too have a number of support groups. And I see you all taking pictures, but we did pass out a handout of the different support groups. But NAMI also has support groups for peers, for persons who are who have mental health challenges as well. So you can check out some of those. They may have a group someone may be interested in. And then here at the church, there's the Caring Ministry, and also there's Stephen Ministries. So even here, find a group or a community resource that works for you. And then we have some mental health resources for you, and next slide, to share for you or to share with someone else. If you know someone that is contemplating suicide, or you know someone whose loved one has died by suicide, call the suicide hotline. They have support groups as well. They have people there that you can talk to as well as your loved one. And then we have the information for NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. They also have a free crises line if you want to call and talk to someone. Mental Health America, California statewide mental health warm line, and then there's the Trevor Project also for people to call and contact if you need support. So these are just some additional resources that we wanted to share with you. And once again, next slide, how to reach us. We've given you lots of flyers and information of how to reach us, but this is our warm line, 888-896-3372. And the actual number for our warm line, time rather, is from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. 9 to 5 are advocates, or general hours for our advocates, but we have actually Lisa, who is on the warm line from 5 to 6 p.m. also, if you want to talk to someone. And you can reach us by Facebook. And also we have a, it's called Ask FERC at mhaac.org. Now, you can type in information and someone, actually it's usually me, will respond to you. If you don't want to talk and you just want to send an email, we can talk that way as well. However you'd like to communicate with us, we have several ways that you can reach out to us. Next slide. We just want to remind you that you're not alone. So in the time of need, remember, there are others who are also experiencing some difficulties, or someone else is out there that you might want to talk with. And we'd just like to thank you for your time today. You've been a great audience. So this very much wraps up our day, because we want to end at a time when you can all still enjoy the rest of your day. So as we wrap up at this time, Michelle is going to go through breathing techniques for us to recenter ourselves.
So we had a lot of information that we learned today. So, and I'm sure it has not the only information, but also a lot of things that you have thought about and brought to your heart. So it's always good for us just to kind of, let's have a relaxed part of the day before we walk out the door. So what I'd like to ask you to do, and it's up to you, is I'm inviting you, if you choose to close your eyes. If you don't want to close your eyes, gaze on something in your mind, or if you have something with you that can bring you joy and relaxation. Get comfortable in your chair. And I'm going to ask to do a couple of techniques. One is going to, let's breathe naturally. And then the other one will be a couple of deep breaths. So when I say breathe naturally, and for us to keep our mind on our breathing, is I would like you to breathe through your nose, to feel the air come and feel that air come through your nose. And then breathe out of your mouth, feeling the air come out of your mouth. This holds our attention on what we are doing, our breathing, and hopefully not letting something from the outside come in. But if it does, acknowledge it and then let it go. So let's start. So let's breathe in and then out. Breathe in. Feel the air coming through your nose. Breathe out. Let's take in a breathe in again, thinking of positive things when we breathe in. And then when we breathe out slowly, breathe out all those negative things. Breathe out slowly. Now I'm going to ask you to take a couple of deep breaths. I'm going to count to 4 breathing in, but I'm going to count to 6 breathing out. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's try that one more time. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more time, but this time I'm going to ask you to hold it at a certain point. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause it, hold it, hold it. Now breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what I'd like you to do is take your hands. Oh, how am I going to do this? Take your hands and rub it together. So warm up your hands. Okay, you'll be my thing. So warm your hands up. Still breathing, I hope. Warm up. So take your right hand and put it on your left shoulder. Take your left hand and put it on your right shoulder. Massage time, yay. Give your hand to go up by your neck and then come down by your shoulders and then go back up again. You're telling yourself, thank you. I deserve this. This is for me. Go up one more time. I like to see smiles on your face, or at least in your eyes. Put a smile. That's an exercise that works on your face. Put a smile on your face. And then what I like you to do is to come back in a room and turn to whoever and say, hello. Say hello. Thank you. I hope this helped. You can do this very quickly. Just that even that quick takes the stress off. Even a quick one like that. All right.
Thank you. And now we're back in the hands of Mark.
So first of all, Betty and everyone, thank you for being here. It has been my desire that we would be a community that would be aware of the needs of not only those who are struggling with mental illness, but those who care. And you have helped us to take steps in that way. And so thank you very much. So I'd like to give you a round of applause for these folks from FERC who've joined us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, may you enjoy your afternoon and breathe well, right?